Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and here is your detailed forecast update for February 23rd, 2025. A lot to get through in today's forecast update. We're going to start things off over in the Coral Sea with that rapidly developing tropical low that's expected to become a tropical cyclone, and then skirt along the Queensland coastline. Over towards Western Australia, where we've got another developing tropical low over there, which is raising the system to achieve tropical cyclone status. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing, but let's get stuck straight into things this morning over in the Coral Sea, and you can see by the convective blob that we're taking a look at here towards the northeast of Willis Island, we do have a very nicely developing tropical low at this time. The Bureau of Meteorology now recognizing this as having a high chance of achieving tropical cyclone status shortly. The showers and thunderstorms are beginning to ease off slightly along the Cassaro coast especially. There's still some strong winds here and there along the Whitsundays and down towards Hamilton Island, where winds have been averaging around 40 to 50 kilometres an hour over the last couple of days. We've also had some strong winds up along the Cassaro coast, and the showers and thunderstorms also continuing north of Cooktown this morning around Lockhart River and Moomba. Those showers and thunderstorms will continue up there with the inflow bands now feeding into this system quite nicely, but it really is a nicely developing system at this time. There's no two ways about it. This system really is putting on knots at a rate of knots and is impressing me with every single satellite frame that we're seeing new with this system. It is a really good looking system, and it's beginning to develop really nicely at this time, and will definitely be quite close to achieving a fully blown lower level center, and also quite close to receiving tropical cyclone status, I would imagine. Still probably about 2 days away from that, but let's jump straight into the forecast right now and talk about what is expected for the future of this system. So it is moving further out to sea, and that's expected to remain the case throughout the course of today. You can see it's expected to continue heading further and further out to sea and slowly intensifying. It's not going to be a quick system to intensify south of PNG and then out towards the Solomon Islands. You can see this system is likely to achieve tropical cyclone status sometime later tonight or into early Tuesday morning, very early into next week, but we're still expecting this to achieve tropical cyclone status at some point. It's going to be a slow intensifier. It's going to be a broad system with a pretty tight low pressure center, which means it will be susceptible to its environments, but it will actually take its time to intensify, just because it's going to have a lot of organizing to do throughout Monday and Tuesday. It'll likely achieve category 2 strength tropical cyclone status sometime on Wednesday, and then run for severe tropical cyclone status through Wednesday night into Thursday morning as it begins its curve down towards the Queensland coastline. Now, this is definitely looking like a very possible scenario now in terms of the track forecast, where we have it head further towards the east, and in fact a little bit further towards the northeast throughout the next 48 hours before it makes that turn as it gets south of the Solomon Islands, and then swings in and starts headed towards the south or the south-southwest towards Queensland here. Now, how close it gets towards Queensland is very dependent now on what kind of turn it takes. The forecast does begin to break down in terms of certainty as we get out towards Thursday and Friday. You can see the storm now slowing down in its motion here. As per the Eastern Blue forecast, we've only got a clear picture in the forecast pretty much out towards the end of February at this time. When this system enters March, or when we enter March, we really don't know what's expected to happen here. You can see the Eastern Blue forecast taking this really closely with towards Queensland, and then at the last minute basically recurving it past Fraser Island and then down towards the southeast corners of Queensland, and then further out to sea down in towards the Tasman Sea here. It's a pretty large low pressure system, strengthening as well by the looks of things, getting really strong by the looks of things. A very powerful tropical cyclone expected at this point as it transitions into a cold front and extratropical system as it races towards New Zealand. I mean, that would be storm of the century down towards New Zealand, so I don't really expect this to happen here, especially in the final stages of this forecast, as it's a really strong system down towards New Zealand. But at this time, we certainly have to be taking the Queensland threat quite seriously. I don't think this is a threat that we can overlook at this time. Still a very big case of watch but don't panic if you live south of Mackay. If you live north of Mackay, I think we can pretty much all but write off the chances of a tropical cyclone impact at this time. It's really looking unlikely. But for those now south of Mackay down towards the Sunshine Coast, this is certainly starting to be a case of look at the forecast. There's no need to panic or begin panic buying or preparing for this tropical cyclone, but now it's time to look at the forecast, check back in on it twice daily, and see what the developments are. There'll be definitive answers when this system develops sometime on Tuesday or Wednesday, and mark my words, if this system is going to make a landfall or a close pass to your location, there will be plenty of notice to prepare adequately for this system. You're not going to be left in the dark here for 24 hours in a race against the clock to prepare for a strong tropical cyclone. You'll have 4, 5, potentially even 6 days to prepare for this tropical cyclone adequately. So plenty of time, plenty of opportunity to prepare, and there's no need to be panicking about this tropical cyclone at this time. In terms of the congruency between the other forecast models, the GFS is now calling for a bit further out to sea in terms of the track for this system here, and a much weaker tropical cyclone as well, before it swings it out last minute in towards the Queensland coastline. I mean, it actually kind of takes it for a bit of a run around the Rockhampton area, so the GFS forecast model really hard to make sense of at this time. And again, the spaghetti forecast models kind of tell you what is the case with this system here. You can see these are all of the potential tracks that this system could take. take as per the GFS forecast and analysis, and you see why they're called spaghetti models. This really does look like somebody's taken a good scoop of spag bol and dumped it across a map of Queensland. There's a lot of uncertainty around the forecast tracks of this system, so it's quite irresponsible for us to be taking a look at the long-range forecast of this system, but it's important that we understand that at this time it is incredibly difficult to be making that long-range forecast, and the Axis is calling for this system to kind of take an extreme version of the Eastern Wear forecast and just run along the Queensland coastline and then down towards Lord Howe and Norfolk Islands between New Caledonia and Queensland later on into the forecast period as a relatively strong tropical cyclone. This is my forecast on it. I still expect this system to continue developing quite nicely. It's likely to achieve tropical cyclone status sometime later tomorrow night or into early Tuesday morning south of the Solomons Islands here. And then it's going to begin that turn towards the southwest, skirting close towards Queensland. It will likely begin an approach towards Queensland through Thursday and Friday, and we'll likely see its closest approach happen sometime around Saturday or Sunday the 1st or the 2nd of March, respectively. If it is going to make a landfall, it's going to be around Rockhampton and Bundaberg, but again, landfall not looking likely at this time, probably about 10 to 15%. The chances are climbing, but again, not looking likely and not anything to be panicking over right now. If it does make a landfall, it will be a weak tropical cyclone Category 1 or Category 2 status. Very unlikely to see a severe tropical cyclone status as far south as Bundaberg. I would not really be expecting that. In terms of what the system will do after that, in fact, the most likely track of this system is following the cursor quite closely. You can see here moving out through the Coral Sea, and then as we get in towards March, it makes that recurve, skirting past Fraser Island here, and then down to a grave over in the Tasman Sea or somewhere down in the South Pacific. So an interesting track forecast, that's for sure, and one that a lot of tropical cyclones have taken in the past, but right now it is still just too uncertain to make sense of, and that's because we don't have a fully fledged tropical cyclone to really take a look at right now. It is a very nicely developing system, that's for sure. I mean, we can't be taken away from the fact that it is developing really nicely, and it is looking really healthy at this time, both on the infrared and the visible satellite imagery bands. It is a really nicely maturing system, and it doesn't look like the satellite loop wants to play through here, but yeah, this storm here, still a lot of uncertainty, a lot of inconsistencies between the forecast models, and a lot of people still up in the air in terms of what is expected. Rainfall accumulations as well is certainly something that we're very interested in. I'm only going to be taking a look at them over the next 4 days because you can see still some good drops of rainfall expected here and there up across far north Queensland. That's reciprocated between other major forecast models, especially the Axis forecast model and the North Queensland forecast model, still bringing a few more showers as we draw through today, especially up in extreme far north Queensland. Plenty more showers coming through today. The conditions ahead of this tropical cyclone remaining pretty healthy as well. I mean, you can see sea temperatures where it is right now, 30 degrees, pushing 31 degrees in some locations. As it gets further south, those sea temperatures will begin to drop off. We'll be looking at sea temperatures closer to about 28 or 27, 28 degrees Celsius as it gets towards the Queensland coastline. So it will likely be on the way out if it does make an approach to the Queensland coastline, which right now, like I said, chances are sitting at around 15%. I'll have a definitive answer on this system later tonight in terms of what we can expect, at least in the short range, and then a definitive answer on the Queensland side of things by around Tuesday or Wednesday. There's still a lot of time for this system to be brought ashore, and the forecast model is still very uncertain, so no need to panic at this time in regards to this tropical cyclone. Just keep a very close eye on the forecast if you live between Mackay and the Sunshine Coast. And for all those interested in Queensland, twice daily forecast updates here on the CyclonesOZ channel starting from today. I would just like to say this to those up in far north Queensland, that there is still no threat to land, or no reasonable threat to land from this tropical cyclone, and whilst a lot of forecasts are still pointing towards a close pass or a landfall, which is a relatively scary and a bit of a daunting scenario, especially after flooding across much of Queensland, they're definitely quite on edge for a weather event like this. Not only is this system expected to impact areas that aren't flood affected for the most part, we're also not really in the know in terms of where this system is going to be tracking, so that massive amount of uncertainty and the fact that this system is going to be making its closest approach to Queensland in around 8 or 9 days time, you've still got huge amounts of time to prepare, huge amounts of time to watch the forecast. So over the coming couple of days, just keep a close eye on the forecast. There's no need to panic or start preparing for this tropical cyclone yet. There will be plenty of time and plenty of warnings and plenty of understanding in terms of where this system is going to be going as we take the forecast through for the next couple of days. So again, play it safe, play it smart here. There's no need to panic buy. That just hurts everybody else across North Queensland. It's going to hurt your bank account, and who knows, you might completely miss out on this tropical cyclone as well. We just don't know with what is happening with the system at this time in terms of the forecast and whereabouts it's going to make its closest approach to Queensland. Anybody that tells you that they know exactly where this system is going to be going is talking loopy. There's just no reasonable way at this time with the amount of uncertainty between major forecast models. It's only a hunch if you know where this system is going to be going. Again, play it safe, play it smart, and I'm wishing everybody across Queensland all the best in this tropical cyclone. That's enough yabber on the Queensland tropical cyclone situation. Any questions or comments, of course, feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. I'd be more than happy to help you out. And feel free to flick me a message over on Messenger as well. I'm very responsive over there and really excited to help people out in tropical cyclone season. Let's head over towards Western Australia. We do have that other tropical low developing offshore from the WA coastline. This system now actually starting to look pretty healthy. I mean, take a look at its latest imagery on the satellite bands here. It's really starting to come along quite nicely. This system beginning to develop an eye wall. Now, I did say that this system is still guaranteed to get up towards severe tropical cyclone status, and I don't believe it is a tropical cyclone right now at this time. If it is, it's just been updated by the Bureau of Meteorology, but this system here really developing quite nicely. We can already start to see, you might be able to see in the latest satellite bands that kind of C-shaped here with that intense convection where I'm kind of holding the cursor. It'll be very hard to see. You'll need to have good eyes to see it, but there is a bit of a C band here in the convection, and that is indicative of an eye wall beginning to form, which means that this system is now undergoing rapid intensification. It looks really healthy as well. This system here is not one to be playing around with, and especially if this was heading for the West Australian coastline, it would be panic stations, but thankfully this system is still continuing to head out to sea at this time. I did say that the intensification would happen later on this weekend. We're now into later on this weekend. Unfortunately, the dreaded work week is about to pop up again. Other forecast models really aren't taking this system up to any significant intensity. I mean, you can see the EastModel kind of playing around with it through Monday and Tuesday. If it does get to a peak intensity, it'll happen around sort of Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning, and then terminal weakening will kick in then. I still believe that the Access forecast model, which is generally speaking a very big highballer on some of these systems here, is calling for a reasonably powerful tropical cyclone. You can see that that is the case here. We'll probably be talking high-end Category 2, early Category 3 status here. This system, certainly by the looks of things, up to Category 1 status, at least on the satellite presentation. That's kind of all I've got to go off right now. I haven't looked at any other forms of information in regards to this tropical cyclone and its formation right now. But yeah, I will just dial back to the C-band here. You can see that this kind of C shape in terms of the convection that I'm kind of hovering the cursor around right now. That's what I'm talking about. This system here is now really beginning to develop an eye wall, and I reckon there's going to be some pretty significant development on this system over the next 24 hours. At this point, I estimate peak intensity to be at Category 3 strength severe tropical cyclone status. No impacts towards Western Australia either, not at least in the short range forecast. If we do pull it through towards the long range, you can see that the tropical cyclone then heads down and kind of stalls well offshore from WA here and drags up some nice breezes by the looks of things through Thursday and into Friday. In terms of rainfall, we were hopeful at one point for up to 100 millimeters of rainfall across the southwest corner. Our hopes have since been dashed, and whilst a few thunderstorms and showers are possible through Tuesday night into Wednesday as well, in fact a few good showers expected through Monday night and parts of Tuesday as well across the southwest corners, and they could reach as far north as Perth. In terms of heavy falls, we're not expecting anything throughout this tropical cyclone and its close passage to the southwest corner of Western Australia, which is really unfortunate because we do need the rainfall down in the southwest corner of WA. But again, no impacts to land this tropical cyclone. It's still got plenty of time to intensify, another good couple of days until it gets south of around Carnarvon, and then that weakening will begin to kick in. But it's got the best conditions right now for the next 2 days. Sea temperatures looking really healthy, 28, 29 degrees Celsius, where the system is right now at about 29, a little bit cooler than what they could be, but it'll be pushing 30 as this system gets a little bit further towards the south. And again, as we've talked about in recent forecast updates, the system is in a very favourable environment right now with an upper level anticyclone. That means that this system is going to have a really good outflow, and we can already start to see this if we dial back to the satellite imagery. This kind of wispy cloud stuff here, that's not impacts of wind shear, that's really good outflow flowing out of the tropical cyclone. And again, those upper level strong winds coming out of the anticyclone, that high pressure system that's situated above this system here, really pushing some outflow, which is making the system look incredibly healthy, even though it is barely a Category 1 strength tropical cyclone at this time. I do reckon it is going to get named at some point today. I'd be very surprised if the Bureau of Meteorology didn't pull the trigger on this system. It certainly deserves a name, that's for sure. I mean, it is looking quite impressive at this time. And take a look at the winds in the jet stream over the southwest corner of Western Australia as well as we get towards Monday and into Tuesday, 230 kilometres an hour. So if you're flying from Perth over towards the eastern states on Tuesday, it will be a quick flight, at least a very quick start of the flight as well. Imagine pilots will be very quick to get up into those strong winds, that's for sure. Very good burst, that is. Anyways, I very much digress. I don't think we've ever talked about that on the CyclonesOZ channel, that's for sure. Let's talk about rainfall now. We always end off the video with a bit of an analysis on the rainfall forecast, at least for the long range. Nothing really to be writing home about across the Northern Territory or Western Australia. A few good drops here and there across the Kimberley region of WA, especially as we push it forward into the later end of the forecast period. You can see some good falls expected into the second week of March by the looks of things. Some good rainfall also expected along the Cape York Peninsula throughout the next couple of days as a result of the developing tropical cyclone in the Coral Sea. And then, I mean, we kind of got to discard the forecast of the southeast and south central Queensland because of the tropical cyclone's future and how uncertain it is. But if it does make a close pass or a landfall on the southeast corner of Queensland, we'll be talking about some really significant rainfall accumulations. I would just like to say no major forecast model is suggesting a tropical cyclone landfall on Queensland this morning, so the chances for that are very small. But that doesn't mean that this system's going to cause no impacts for Queensland. We certainly could be seeing a few impacts, especially in terms of rainfall. And between the other forecast models, we'll be looking at up to about 350 millimeters here on Fraser Island if this tropical cyclone was to make a very close passage, which at this time is not looking overly unlikely. And certainly something we've got to keep a pretty close eye on. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting aspect of the forecast in terms of the really long-range stuff for Queensland, and then especially tropical northern Queensland as well. There's going to be plenty to talk about as we head in towards the later months of March, especially across the southeast into New South Wales. Showers and thunderstorms will be everywhere as we get towards the later end of March. Certainly interesting stuff expected in terms of rainfall there as Mad and Julian oscillation and the monsoon bursts once again up in far north Queensland. And just before I close off this video as well, rounding out the rainfall forecast, we've got plenty of tropical cyclones, actually 4 tropical cyclones in a bit of a tropical cyclone train across the Coral Sea and into the South Pacific. Let's take a look at the satellite imagery right now. You've got this system over here, which is the one that's probably the strongest right now, developing quite nicely in the Coral Sea, and that's one we've spent all the time in this video talking about. One north of Vanuatu here over the Solomon Islands. We've got another one here just towards the northeast of Fiji, and then one well to the south of, or the southeast of Fiji rather, well out in the South Pacific Ocean. These systems here are respectable in terms of intensity. We often get this in the South Pacific Ocean. It's kind of the only basin where we see massive interconnected tropical cyclone trains, and it looks like sometime tomorrow we'll see a tropical cyclone brush through Fiji and then head down south towards New Zealand later on in the forecast period south of Nuku'alofa. Certainly an interesting aspect of the forecast as well. Like I said, the only place in the world where we see tropical cyclone trains develop like this. It's very interesting to see. And again, the satellite imagery is an interesting look, that's for sure. I mean, take a look at this. All these systems are lined up in a bit of a curve fashion, and I think the satellite imagery on what looks to be Wednesday night into Thursday morning, that will be very interesting indeed. That will be like the planets aligning, with these systems basically all in a line here, give or take a couple of kilometers for the most part, stretching from the Coral Sea well down towards the south of the South Pacific Ocean here, south of Micronesia. Interesting stuff, that's for sure, and so it's certainly not something that we see every day, let alone every year. Certainly something that I'm going to be keeping a close eye on, and if you're an avid tracker of those satellite images as well, you could get some pretty good snaps throughout the course of Wednesday and into Thursday with all these systems lined up, that's for sure. But yeah, very active in the South Pacific, and we're definitely in a high energy period, and that's translated over in towards the Coral Sea as well. I've kept this video update a little bit shorter. We're definitely going to have a forecast update later on tonight. Again, the support lately has been much appreciated, so a special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now, and again, I could not run the show without them. Their support is much appreciated. Up to 25 members now, so again, the list keeps growing and growing, and I could not run the show without them. Their support is much appreciated. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video while you're at it. The support there has been much appreciated over on the Facebook, and feel free to reach out to me over on Facebook in emails or in the comments as well if you've got questions or concerns about either systems on either points of Australia. But that is all for me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.